Welcome to another Aviassist focus session. In our focus sessions, we aim to inform, inspire and entertain. We provide you insights into the exciting world of safety and its professionals. Today, we're talking about e-learning. Many of us had to make a very sudden switch to a lot more online training since the start of the corona pandemic. The Foundation did its first online course in June of this year with our maintenance management course. Some say that the transition to e-learning can also be seen as one of the silver linings of the corona pandemic. In today's focus session, we are looking at what works and what does not work in e-learning. I'm joined at the table by Jules Kneepkens, Director of Tata Online.net, Jérôme de Rival Mazères, Regional Flight Safety Director at aircraft manufacturer ATR, and Wesley Koot, a trainer and course developer at KLM Royal Dutch Airlines. Jules, your company Tata is our host here in the studio. Before we continue our conversations, let's have a short video by Tata that gives us a little insight into the smart learning courses of Tata. Jules, tell us a little bit about your role, your background, your role in e-learning.
My background is that I've been a civil servant for decades, and my last job was the rulemaking director at the EASA, the European Safety Agency. And there I learned that we made a lot of regulations, and then once they were published, we assumed people had to learn them and to study them. And we didn't pay any attention to the training. And when I left, I was contacted by a very professional guy with the development of online learning. And then we discussed how we could promote the online learning to make sure that people have an easy way to train the regulations which do come from the EU and the EASA system. And for that, we focused on online learning via special formula, 777.
Okay.
And that allowed us to develop courses which can use a lot for recurrent training for those people who every 2 years have to do the same job. And that's what we tried to develop. And in parallel, I was assisting authorities who would like to take over the EU system.
Yeah.
And we also introduced there the online learning for their staff. So that's how I'm involved.
Okay, that's your role in e-learning currently,
Yes.
with Tata as well indeed.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess the same question to you, Jérôme. Please introduce yourself and what is your link to e-learning?
Oh, thank you, Tom. So, I have started my career back in early 2000. First as an autopilot and then flight data recorder specialist in Airbus. Then I moved to ATR in 2015, and in this role, I look for opportunities to improve safety across the operators and the authorities. So this is in that role that I'm very much involved in training. We, of course, in our job, either the mechanics or the pilots or the cabin crew, everybody needs a lot of training. And this is something that we promote heavily to make sure that everybody has the same level of training, whatever the country, whatever the regulation. So this is where
you sit in. So a direct link in your job between safety promotion as an aircraft manufacturer and how to use e-learning for that, increasingly so.
Yeah, e-learning, as you said in the introduction, this is maybe the silver line, you called it.
Yeah.
This is something that we have been forced to move to, and which is a good thing. That initially it was very difficult to have online or distance learning provided by ATR. And now this is something which has been promoted, which has been proposed, which has been offered. It's a slow move because we need to translate any existing training into e-learning or distance learning. This is slowly, but we are moving into this direction, which is again a good thing. Maybe we will discuss the pros and cons later on, what works and what doesn't work.
Exactly, because we've seen also at the foundation that it takes a different approach, both from the students, but also from the instructors, if you like. Right, we'll get back to that later on, Geraud. Wesley, what's your background and your role in e-learning, in relation to e-learning?
I started around about 2000. Started in aviation, small company, Air Holland. Went to Martinair, and now I'm here sitting from KLM. I'm a trainer developer from 2004. So I develop training, give training to cabin crew and pilots, and also some small security companies. And e-learning, we used to do e-learning in the 2000 period, but that was just a small, because we thought it was better to have the people in the classroom, not at home, not online. And the only good thing from COVID, because COVID isn't good at all, but the only good thing is, hey, we've opened our eyes and we can see, online training works. I think a perfect example was just the movie we saw from Tata. That was a real inspiring movie to show, hey, if you organize it good, but that's something we'll talk about later, then that can work. And since COVID, 2-3 years ago, we started enrolling online training.
And what I would like all of you here at the table today also to specifically take in mind in our discussion is a lot of our viewers out there will be from smaller operators. You know, they may not have the financial power to say we have a whole e-learning department. So if you can think in the discussion today of what would be small nuggets, small things that even a smaller operator or a smaller airport out in Africa could use to get to e-learning, to get to good e-learning, that would be very, very helpful. So actually, speaking of that good e-learning, and you mentioned it yourself as well, Wesley, if I can stick with you for the moment, for you, what does good e-learning look like? When do you say, wow, I've seen this product with us at KLM, for example, and that's how it should be?
Well, I think most important is you need to start at the foundation. It's like building a house. If the foundation isn't correct, then whatever you build on top, it'll fall over some time and it won't work.
Yeah.
What we've learned in the last couple of years is the most important thing is to look at the end user. Who is going to do the online training? What is the work, the field he or she works in? Culture is very important, but also how do people learn? Because one will manage with just a piece of paper, just I'll read it and then I know. Some people need a movie, some people need practical training. So we always talk about 4 personas, different learning styles.
Okay.
And if you really know the end user, work field, culture, and how someone learns, then that can really help by building whatever learning. Could be in the classroom, but especially online. So that's something, that's where you need to start, to figure out who will be the end user. Yeah, that's the most important.
I think also, Jules, that for you, I guess, resonates with what you said earlier, that you initially worked with the European Aviation Safety Agency, where you didn't, as an agency, rulemaking agency, you didn't really think of how people have to use it. Now you're, of course, on the other side, where you have to develop those smart learning courses. For you, what does good e-learning look like?
One of the things is that you should know your target. Who is the audience, but also recognize that within the audience you have different levels of knowledge and learning, a bit the 4 categories that are designed by my neighbor, Wesley, but also what is the context and where you do it. For example, we have provided some training for people in the Middle East, and we know they have a special way of learning, meaning they want to get things done very easy. And they make a lot of use of tablets, iPhones, that type of things. And that's where we said, okay, if we have to train a staff from the CA, we have to make sure that their attention is caught by the course. What is the reason? That there is some mandatory element in it.
Okay.
but at the same time there is a kind of a playful way how to learn it, how to use it. And in the end we make sure that we test them so that we know that they have seen the video. So there has to be some control whether people do it, not simply clicking a PowerPoint slide, but also at the end that you really check whether they captured the content of the course.
So at least 2 elements I pick from you in terms of what good e-learning is in your experience. That is, like Wesley said, look at the persona, who's the customer, who's going to use it. But also the point you bring is look at what platforms you use. Can they just go online or can they go on their mobile phone, for example? Jérôme, same question to you. What for you at ATR, what does good e-learning look like?
Before answering that question, I want to pause a little bit,
Yes,
if I may.
No, of course.
What do we mean by e-learning? Here in ATR, what we offer right now, this is what we would call distance learning. So we still have the trainer doing the training with a camera and talking to the trainees. So it's a live session. Instead of maybe if a training is supposed to last for 2 days, we would split it in 4 half days with a camera looking at the trainer, camera looking at the board when the trainer is actually writing something on the board. And if the trainer needs to focus on some specific, I don't know, if the training is about how to change the wheel, you would look at the wheel and how to change the wheel. So this is what we call distance learning. As opposed to what we call e-learning, which is more self-learning via internet, which you could do anytime. You can do from home, anytime, and you don't need the training. So you don't need the trainer to be available. You do it whenever you want. This part is not yet available for ATR. We are working on it, but it requires a lot more effort from us because we need to anticipate, and this would answer your question, what is e-learning? You need to anticipate a lot of questions from the trainee. Because this is what is missing when we have an actual training, presence, physical training.
You have this interaction.
You have a lot of interactions. You have the trainee who would interrupt, but I want to know this and that. This is missing. There is a big gap between face-to-face training and even distance training because it's not that easy to have interactions, but still it's possible. And then the next step is e-learning, when you have not at all this interaction. So you need to anticipate a lot.
And design your training.
Design the training.
These things into account.
Exactly. And think, okay, maybe the trainee would think about that question, etc. The good thing with the e-training, I think, is that then you can easily, I think, turn any language, translate automatic translation. And this is something which is tremendous. When looking at YouTube, for instance, when there are subtitles available, providing the subtitles are properly edited in English.
Yes.
You need to pay attention to this. So if the subtitles are properly edited, then automatic translation is brilliant. It works very, very well in French, and I've tried in any other language when I visit operators. Each time they are amazed. Any language.
By the quality of making it available in their own language.
Exactly. And this is something that is a burden for us. Sometimes we do have some operators all over the world. Their level of English is not top class. So that would be very beneficial for them to have this training available in their own language. But again, it's another step.
Yeah, but the last step you said that's really important. So if I had to do a training in French and I don't even speak French, then I will never take up whatever is in that training. If I have in my home language, in my native language, that develops me more, even 90%. So that's a good thing to anticipate whatever you're making. So
and Wesley, I think, of course, KLM has been doing online training or distance learning perhaps for a longer time, but I guess you have also made a shift over the past 18 to 20 months almost, I guess, with Corona. Did you see a similar challenge where what Jérôme describes, that you have the situation that you have to anticipate many more questions because you can't answer them there and then? You have to...
No, what we do is not not anticipate or what will my end user eventually ask me. Now we have a pool. Of course, KLM is quite a big company, so we have a dedicated pool of 100 people, 100 camera crew pilots. And if we say, okay, what does he or she think of the way we present that movie? Okay, I can think of that, but I can also ask my 100 end users. Okay, I'm going to show you a movie, and please give me feedback what you want.
So you work with like almost focus groups. You sit together with a small group.
So we constantly interact with our end user, so we never make the mistake. Oh, I thought my end user liked YouTube with subtitles. If they all say we don't like it, then why am I doing it? So that's again the end user. Again, get him involved in how do you learn, what do you like, what do you don't like, and keep learning from everything you do. And one shift we made is what we do. We said we're going to split the recurrent, our recurrent training yearly. One day will be practical, one day will be online. But
practical as in a classroom?
Yeah, in a classroom, simulated classrooms. But the one online, that was in their roster. So the roster agent would say, okay, next Monday you have from 9 to 4 to do online training. So you need to be at home or wherever, you need to have your iPad and do it.
Okay.
We heard, okay, but why do I need to do it particularly on that day?
Yeah.
Isn't it more, and that's something we have started now from a test. We're going to give them 4 weeks. 4 weeks, it's open.
There's a window of 4 weeks.
There's a window of 4 weeks. Yeah, and you need to finish the online. That gives you a ticket for the practical training. So make sure you finish early. And that's, again, what they want. And if we can give them that small piece. Okay, today, let me just do a quick security e-learning. That takes me roughly 40 minutes. Then after that, I can do some shopping and go and get the kids. No, let me do a security. And that means they're focused because they're relaxed. It only takes 40 minutes and they're more at ease.
Because they also choose their own moment.
Yeah, they're in control.
And I think, of course, Jules, that also brings it to the point then of what you spoke of, that giving them the choice of device. Because some people like to sit in the train and do something on their phone, and others say, no, I have to, I want to sit in my office because that is a way for me to focus indeed. What we've also seen at AVSIS, like I said, we did our first course earlier this year, and we adapted some of the techniques and tools which Tata has developed. So we're very grateful for that as a foundation.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. But I think it's a great act. A great deed you do, honestly, towards Africa, because it's difficult for a small organization like AVSIS to make that transition. Because we don't have, like KLM, a pool of course developers available. So once again, thank you very much indeed. We spoke about the student side of things, the learner, what they want, and that we have to take into account what they want and which language perhaps they want. But Jules, maybe we can shift also to the instructors, because we've seen that also in some cases you seem to require a different persona almost as instructor, because like Giraud said, you miss this interaction in the class, which some instructors terribly miss. They say, I can't talk to a screen with nobody on the other side. How has been your experience in that respect as Tata?
Well, you have to be trained in doing that, and also in the way that you design and develop your course material. Of course, you have to include in your course material different things that catches the attention of the people, so that they don't skip away, drifting away with their mind, but that you really keep them focused. And that is a bit what we call our 777 formula, is that we make sure that we capture their attention by making sure that every 7 seconds that people look at the video, there is a change.
Because so something changes every 7 seconds on the screen.
On the screen. So that really means that people stay attentive by what's now. So that keeps the attention of the people.
But surely you don't change the presenter every 7 seconds.
No, the presenter. So what kind of changes but the presenter has to realize that. So the presenter in the course material that he develops has to make sure that in that scheme of time frame that he has for the developing, that he makes sure that something is in his speech, that we do that later, we edit that later. So we put him in front of a green screen, and then later we put all those elements in, which he is referring to in his training.
So every 7 seconds something in his background could change,
Yes. And that means that people need to know how to do that. And also you have to be sure that you capture all the core content of the courses. So when the CEA comes and audit your course to see whether you comply with your training to the requirements,
that all the content is actually there.
The content is there. And
which of course is much more difficult when it is these short modules, isn't it? For the instructors,
because what we try to do is to shorten the module to 1 hour And in that hour, we have 7 blocks of 7 minutes. And in those 7 blocks of 7 minutes, every 7 seconds something changes.
Really smart.
Hence the 777.
That's the 777 formula. But also what we do is we work, for example, in the Middle East, we had a state whereby, and you will see it later, whereby we a full day training course on rulemaking could reduce to 1 hour. And by really focusing on the core elements and to making links in the video so that later, when people want to check, they can check, okay, there was a link to this article there and there, or to this regulation, I can look it up. Also, we put questions in the video training so that we make sure that, and they can, let's say, do 3 modules, and the other 4 they do next time. And then they will look up, in the meantime, the evidence to make sure that the next questions that will follow, make sure that they really know how to answer them. Because those things, at the end, you also get a test by 25 questions at random. Ask, and then you have to have a score before you can get the.
There's a passing mark which you have to achieve.
Yes. But also, what is in that is very important that you change it over time, so that we have those scores not every year the same, but also that you take out other modules, put in new modules, so to make sure that people don't do it on automated pilots. I know that already from last year. Let's go.
Actually, I think you mentioned the videos. I think we can have a look at one of the videos you took along, which sort of gives an insight into how, when you do a rulemaking course, for example, how you have to take into account the technical side of things and the operational side of things, isn't it? Let's have a quick look at that first video, Jules, that you took from Tata.
Welcome to this training video on the rulemaking procedure. In 7 modules of 7 minutes each, we will lead you through the procedure for making new aviation regulatory material or amendments to existing material. First, we will start with an introduction of the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority. Then we will have an introduction into the Qatar legal system by Nawaf Al-Amari. And finally, I will explain how the rulemaking procedure is established and how it fits in the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority management scheme.
سلامة الطيران المدني وتحسينها والحفاظ على مستوى عالي من القدرة والكفاءة تعتبر هدفاً أساسياً تسعى منظمة الطيران المدني الدولي إلى توفيره لدى جميع الدول الأعضاء. والامتثال لبنود اتفاقية شيكاغو يتطلب من كل دولة أن تصدر التشريعات واللوائح وأن تضع التدابير التي تضمن بها الامتثال لبنود تلك الاتفاقية، وأن تضع أيضاً نظاماً فعالاً لمراقبة السلامة الجوية.
So Jules, why did you take this video along? Explain the relevance.
What we try to do here is to put the training course in the perspective of the CA.
Yeah.
Introduction speech by the CEO of the CA.
In their own language.
In their own language.
Yeah.
And then subtitle it for those people who work there as expats so that they can understand what he is saying, because not all those expats speak Arabic.
And of course we have a very international industry, also in Africa indeed, where you have people from all kinds of backgrounds.
Yes, also make use of the local knowledge, because the legal affairs are explained by a local person, so a trained Qatari legal officer. And the lady who is presenting it, her origin is from Ghana, but she is then developing the course in the organization, and has also in the past provided those training during a 1-day training, which now is reduced to 1 day. And we think here, because it is mandatory, so it's mandatory for the staff to have that course, because one of the requirements of ICAO is also that the CA staff knows about regulations and how you have to develop them. And that by doing this and also make it mandatory, we make sure at the end with a test that people will follow it. And also the fact that the president is there is an incentive for the people.
Yeah.
And what the Qatari people do a lot is they do not so look much at the telephone or on the computer screen, but on their phone. They do this thing every
So again, you have to make sure that it's suitable.
Because they have
for
the latest phones, so they want to use that to the maximum.
Well, I mean, as an aviation and space lawyer, of course, I'm very happy to see you brought an example of rulemaking, because that's very important. But I think, all joking aside, we also see that in all courses we do, we always have this module to start with, because people don't always know what ICAO is, or they may not know how a standard works, or the standard is not legally binding. So that's a very crucial start, I think. I think the point we spoke about the languages and the different cultures, because because you mentioned, of course, many different nationalities in Qatar. But it's very important to remember, I think, also in Africa that's the case. One of our sponsors, Rwandair, for example, has 48 different nationalities in their cockpit.
Wow. Yeah.
So again, you have to tailor and look at these persona, I guess, how you develop it in that respect. Wesley, have you seen anything? We spoke about this topic earlier on of that you also have to train the trainers who make those courses.
Yeah.
Have you seen any developments there in the last, particularly 18 months again?
Well, what we just talked about to really focus on the end user of the online training, of course. So they do the online, they come for practical training, and there eventually is the trainer. We also listen to the trainer. Okay, this is a step we made. We're going to go online. We're going to go practical. What do you need? What do you want to do in a simulator if you have students? Let's drop all the legal and we need to do this from ICAO and whatever.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? So we listen to the trainers, and then the trainer says, okay, firefighting, give that theory piece online, and when they come here, then let's just stick to the practical. I don't have to tell them what the theory was, because that's something they did online, and I can purely focus on practical, CRM-wise, working in teamwork. That's what I want. Okay, so now we needed to train them. Okay, drop the theory. That's something we'll take off your hands online. And you can just focus on the practical training, and that's something we needed to work together and see what would work or what didn't.
That's something that we now do with aircrew training. So for example, with cabin crew, they have a huge package of things that they have to train.
Yeah.
So now we are sitting with one of the trainers of an airline and split it up in things that can be done online and things which have to be done practical. Yeah. And then you make that a package, and then the first thing they can do when they want, but the other thing you have to roster them and you have to bring them to a how you call it, for firefighting exercises, hands-on
facility where you can do
that definitely. Yeah.
So that's
another combination.
Another important point we picked, and also for the audience in Africa, is yes, you have to talk to prospective customers, or even if it's your own staff, your prospective course participants, but also to the instructors that give your courses. How does that work with ATR, Jerome?
No, it's interesting what we just heard here, because so the question was what does work, what doesn't, and one thing which is difficult to make it work is when for the pilots, for instance, they need to go to the simulator twice a year. So I'm interested by what you guys just said. So the idea here is not to skip this simulator part, but to shorten it, right? Because if they are prepared in advance ahead of the training, then they don't need to stay that long in the simulator. That's your point. I think this is something to be considered for sure. But then still they need to go to the simulator, and we do have some operators. They operate in a country with no simulator at all. So when the country is locked down because of COVID, then they are stuck. They need to ask for extension to their authorities, which they did. They had some extensions for some months, which from a safety point of view is not what we are pushing for sure, because we want people to be trained and to remain current. So these are the bits that are a little bit blocking. Another thing which is interesting what we just saw, the e-learning, or whatever we call it, distance learning. The difficult part, apart from having the hands-on, as we just described with the simulator, the missing part for us is whenever you need a diploma. And I saw in your movie that there is a certificate. This is something that we can provide, just the attendance sheet. Yes, you were there. That's it. Certificate of attendance, that's it. But a diploma or a qualification, this is something that we have not been able to do yet, because it needs to be approved by the authorities. So I'm very interested by your online training, because the authorities are doing this already, so that would be easier than to convince authorities to be able to provide this qualification diploma whenever you need it.
What we do there is that what Wesley can say how they do this in others, but what we do is upfront we have contact with the authority, so to make sure that we make the training complying to their regulation. We inform them, and if they want, they can have a look at what we do. Because what the authority will never do is give you, let's say, an approval. What they do is they will tell you, this is meeting the requirements from the regulations, please go ahead. So that's what you can get.
And no formal hereby approved, so to say.
No, because then you get all kinds of, maybe in other states, but in the Middle East and here it's a bit complicated, because then you get falsification of competition. So that's why they say this is meeting the requirements, so that's fine. And then up to you how you are going to do that and how you make it work. And and by having that approval between brackets, then the certificate that we issue is then also reflecting that they have met the requirements according to the applicable regulations. And that cannot be contested, because at forehand the authority has approved the content of the course, not the way how we do it.
No. And actually, that whole approval is an issue which is quite challenging also in Africa, we've seen, because traditionally, before Corona, people, for very good individual reasons, were very keen to travel abroad. Because traveling abroad means you get very attractive allowances, and it's something that some people in Africa never want to speak about, but it is an important impediment, holding back these developments. And I guess perhaps the silver lining now in Africa is, of course, like you said, you cannot go anywhere else. No. So people are forced to look at these very often much more cost-effective ways anyway, compared to traveling, of course. Yeah. But it is something that has been quite challenging. How has it been for you, Wesley, in terms of working with the regulators and when to involve those regulators?
I think within KLM, not to say that we are doing something really good, but I think we've earned our credits in the last couple of years with the regulators. So whatever training we develop and give them the syllabus for approval, or to say, hey, you it's all according with the requirements. We just say, usually what we say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what you want me to do. These are all the law.
Requirements.
Yeah. And this is what I'm going to do online. And this is what I'm going to do practical. And together it's one training. So the certificate, we do it on a practical day. So online, you need to complete that with tests and everything to come to the classroom. When that's finished, then you get the certificate. Then we note it by law. And because we earn our credits, maybe we were lucky, but we said, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And they said, okay, it looks okay, everything's in there, and we'll audit you, of course. But for now, we say yes and go ahead.
But let's take this back then to Africa. What is a big issue, when I spoke about it in another session with Chamzu as well, a big issue in Africa is that regulators and industry are traditionally not very happy in working together. So where could they start? For example, you develop a new course, or you want to develop a new course. Imagine you've experienced this, a new person in the regulator who's not worked with you before. How do you start? You send this person an email saying, hello, my name is Wesley, we're developing this new, come over and see how we do it, or how does that start, that dialogue?
Yes, we see everybody who has influence in our training is a stakeholder. At the beginning of whatever you are going to make or develop, you need all your stakeholders. You need to show them what your plan is, see what they think, because if you start building and then after a couple of months they come and said, oh no, that's not what we want, okay, so we need to stop.
But it's scary, of course, in a way, to involve them in an early stage. I mean, I can imagine.
No, it's very confident.
It helps you.
What you're doing is good.
Yeah.
Because they were raised immediately in the beginning their finger to say, no.
And it's better to know that at the beginning, you mean, than being a few months down the line.
That's agile working. The sooner you know and get feedback, this is not what we want. If it's a user or regulator, then we can change. Okay, what do you want? Okay, and let's go on from there.
Sometimes could be even the other way around. For us, for instance, during the COVID, when we had this issue of nobody able to travel to our facilities, we were asked by our authorities to design a course for the pilots. So of course without any simulator, but at least to design a specific course for them to get some refresh on the systems and so on. So it was not as good as in the simulator, but it was an initiative from the authorities themselves. From the regulator asking ATR, please, can you design a course?
So thinking of safety cultures, thinking of our industry wanting to be proactive, this was an excellent example of the regulator saying, hey, manufacturer, can you design something on this? Can you remember what one of the courses was, for example, that they approached you with?
Yeah, that was exactly. I guess that's only a guess. I guess many operators call these regulators. I cannot go to ATR. I need an extension. And then they said, okay, I will give a call to ATR. What can you do for these pilots? And then they asked something which is available online. So that was a course about the system, the avionic, how all the system, the FMS and so on work. Of course, they know the pilots, but that was
It's
a
a refresher,
refresher
yeah.
specifically for these pilots who didn't fly for months. At least you still get used to it, and you have this available training for them to use, and they can do it whenever you want. They want. It was not part of the roster. Of course, there was no roster, but they had to do it on a regular basis.
That's interesting. How every country, you're talking about Africa, we need to deal with the culture and how they work in France. I mean, here, if I just have a look in Holland, they will never come to us. Okay, Kelem, you need to know it's always the other way around. We have an idea. What do you think of it? It's interesting to hear.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something. I mean, again, this dialogue in Africa, which is aviation, we're really trying to encourage of regulators and industry meeting each other outside of incidents, because now in Africa quite often they only meet each other when there's a conflict, when there's an incident or an accident, not necessarily a conflict, but a difficult situation. Whereas if you look for these, perhaps, again, maybe a little bit of silver lining, where you can say you can use this, the development of e-learning to get together a little bit more and see we're serving the same purpose of safety.
That's it. Yeah.
What would you like as a regulator, like Jules said, for me to do and put into this course?
But the point is also that regulators usually recruit for their inspectors or oversight staff people who come from the same type of activity. And
so a pilot for the flight operations inspector, for
exactly,
example.
a former cabin crew member for the cabin crew, the dangerous goods. But they never look at the way how these people have been trained in educational training. They don't know if these people have some background on how the best teaching method can be developed. So that's not what they have. So that's also, they need to change with the industry, so to make sure that they can indeed have a good view on what is presented by the industry to them for the online smart learning, whatever term you use. And now often, because they're not used to it, they are very reluctant accept. And in the case of ATF, they did invite Giraud to develop one, but usually they stay away from it. So, but now maybe because of COVID, they see also the regulators, the main regulator in the EU and the EASA, they're promoting it, they are pushing it. So now something starts moving. Yeah. But if you look 2 years back, you see that we're...
Absolutely, So it has been a big push in that respect.
Yes.
Jules, I want to take us to a second short video which you took along to the studio today. I think if we first look at the video and then you explain what component you think is depicted there. So let's have a look at that next video.
As a freight forwarder, you play a vital role in helping to ensure the safety of the passengers and crew on board an aircraft. That's because some items in cargo are called dangerous goods, which means that if they are not prepared and handled properly, they can pose a hazard to the health and safety of everyone on board. They can also pose a hazard to property, such as the aircraft itself, other cargo, baggage, airport equipment, and the environment. Sadly, there have been accidents where crew and passengers have been killed because dangerous goods were not correctly prepared for air transport, including one in 1996, when a DC-9 aircraft, operated by the airline ValueJet, crashed into the Everglades swamps shortly after takeoff. All 110 people on board were killed. There have been other fatal accidents, including one involving a Boeing 747 freighter aircraft in Dubai in September 2010. A severe fire developed on the main cargo deck of the aircraft to such an extent that the crew lost control and both were killed in the subsequent crash. The cause of the fire is not known for sure, but large quantities of lithium batteries were being carried, many of which were subsequently determined not to have been properly prepared for transport. The term dangerous goods may conjure up all kinds of images, such as bombs, infectious substances, and radioactive material. However, many are items which are used routinely every day without concern, but which in transport pose a hazard, and so they must be prepared in accordance with very stringent requirements prescribed by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, and the International Air Transport Association, IATA.
So Jules, why did you take this illustration along today?
We produced this one for the forwarders community in the Middle East because of a new introduction of a regulation. And also forwarders are very busy with their daily practice, and also their staff has to be trained. And we produced this video because there was a new regulation that came into place to tell the forwarders what is the essence of the regulation and where they should look for, to make them aware of the regulation. The whole video takes 50 minutes.
50 or 15?
15, 1-5.
1-5, okay.
And then also later they can also then look up in the regulations what are then the details, but it was mainly to make them aware something has been published, and we will send it to all the companies, it put on the website. So every forwarder looking for the regulations first had to watch
Start
the video.
with this as a very quick introduction to...
Simply to advocate there is a new regulation.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing, of course, is with the digital world now and the cameras that are available. Also in Africa, we see, you can see it in some of the commercials we play in our conference. Operators like, ProFlight in Zambia or SafariLink, they have video production capabilities available. So if they take some of the gold nuggets that you've been providing them with here today, I think hopefully it will help them in making that transition easier and increasing the impact of what they do as well, because what we see as Aviassist is, of course, with these online learning courses, you can also reach many more people. So the impact in terms of safety promotion can be much larger. Right, well, gentlemen, we've come near to the end of today's session. In closing, can I ask each of you, starting with Jules perhaps, if you have to give one small tip to an African operator out there, whether it's an airport or an air traffic control organization, don't forget this when you start with an online training course. What would your one suggestion be?
Don't forget who is listening and let's say that the age of the people you are addressing.
So not so much don't forget who's listening in terms of Secret Service, but you mean who's your target audience?
The target audience.
And what age do they have?
What age?
In other words, what devices they use.
Difference in learning in the ages. Yes.
Then I switch to Giraud with that same question. If you have to give one little last piece of advice, if you like, to the African operators out there.
Well, I think we all agree that online training is very good. The missing part for me is the promotion of it. So what we are missing sometimes is this is available. So don't forget that this is available. Please enroll. Please come and enjoy this training, apply for this training, because otherwise that would be a waste of time, waste of resource. So this is something which is clearly missing, and thanks for Aviassist for this promotion. This is exactly what we are currently doing. It's useless if you design this e-learning or
fantastic module,
training,
but people don't know about it. Yeah.
So please apply. Don't forget to apply. That would be my advice.
And I think that's actually really difficult. Of course, we only work in Africa, so maybe it's similar in different regions, but that's something we really see. It's difficult to make sure that, yes, we may have the right type of course for the right target audience, but now for people to know that it's available indeed.
Yeah, and what is inside? Why would they apply? Why is it good
for them
to apply? So yeah, promotion. This is about promotion.
Promotion of what's going on. Wesley, last famous words for you in terms
of not least. The honor was all mine. No, I can relate to whatever the gentleman just thought. That was something I was thinking of as well. Because of COVID, because of maybe in Africa legislation is hard, difficult, and they need to open their eyes or whoever. Thinking of a quote. Everybody's experienced now that we're having a lot of headwind.
Yeah.
It's pushing us back. And never forget that an airplane always takes off. Instead of wind in the back, it always has wind.
The headwinds.
Yeah, so sometimes you need it. So just take advantage of the wind that is in front of you and just try to...
Don't be discouraged, basically.
That's it.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, be bold.
So use this silver lining that we all seem to agree we have at the moment to push that opportunity for more safety promotion.
Yeah.
Fantastic, gentlemen. Well, thanks so much. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thanks so much for being our guests here today at the table, and thank you for tuning in for Safety Promotion. If you want to get in touch with us at the Foundation about this focus session or about how we can boost your safety promotion, contact us at info@aviassist.org. Then join us again on Africa Day, the 25th of May 2022, for the next focus session, the online TV show to inform, inspire and entertain African aviation safety. That next session will be all about the link between safety and insurance. But for now, Kwaheri, and I look forward to seeing you in the next focus session. Good day.